Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. Great to be here at SFF. It's the 10th year of SFF, my first year, and incredible to see the energy here. And I'll explain why they changed and made me sit in between. Because, I am sitting in between the two most distinguished AI experts at SFF today. Dr. David, as he mentioned, is a PhD in machine learning. He's done AI strategy for mass. And Pedro has written a book, How AI Will Shape the Future. So really, I'm in between two very, very experienced AI strategists, and I'll do my best to get the best out of them. AI these days is a household name, especially in enterprises as well, whether you're on the engineering floor, operations floor, CXO meeting or boardroom, there cannot be a conversation without the talk of AI. But what's really important is that AI is not just a technology intervention or a technology breakthrough, but what it can do to businesses, operating models, people, and the overall human good. So I think what we're going to spend the next 15 minutes or so is really from an Infosys perspective, we look at 4 dimensions of AI: scalability, responsibility, value creation, and talent. And we'll try to unpack each of these dimensions with my distinguished guests. So, Dr. David, to start with you first, over the last few years, there's been a lot of experimentation, POCs, people say death by 1,000 POCs with AI. But is that now behind us? And in enterprises like Standard Chartered, how are you making AI real, and what are the enablers as well as blockers?
Yeah, and let me just add that in Singapore, POC stands for die must work. So I'm 100% over that, and we've matured. I think the essence of proving that something is valuable, whether it's viable, look, if you need to prove these things. It's like a good friend of mine, which in a telco, he called him up and said, how to use an iPhone? And says, if you need a manual how to use an iPhone, let me take it away from you.
Yeah.
We've passed it. And that's exactly where also inside of Charter we're now focusing. We're focusing in terms of scale. We're focusing in terms of productionalization and operationalization, because the challenge today is how do you do things repeatedly? Everyone's doing use cases, everyone. But, like you mentioned, there's a tremendous number of POCs, and then for each one use case, the cost, and by cost I don't just mean money, I mean sometimes it's blood, sweat, and tears, the cost of doing it seems equivalent. It's the same every single time. That's not going to work. Imagine that every single time you want to drive a car on the highway, you have to ask, what are the rules, what am I supposed to do, you're not going to be able to drive. The reason we have Autobahn in Germany, why we have these capacities, because you know the rules, you know what can be done, and the utility cost of doing it diminishes. That is the goal. That is the focus, and that's the move from the world of the POCs and the pilots to now a world of how do we do this? How do we create the environment where we effectively roll out these application and add-on capabilities that are necessary by the business?
Yeah, and you said, the car analogy. I live in the US, I drive a full self-driving car. And again, it was a bit like that, right? You kept hesitating and resisting, and one day I started using it, and after that, I've stopped driving, and I can say that the car drives better and safer than I do. Pedro, I think a lot of discussion around AI is on the value, right? Of course, you can do a lot with AI, but from in a banking scenario, from the front office to the back office to compliance. But how do you prioritize, and where do you see in the industry are the most valuable areas from an AI perspective?
So where do I see in the industry the main value areas? There are a number of them. I will start in business units. I will start with contact center. Contact center is something that is very, very clear where you can go direct to customer. In some cases with artificial intelligence, in other cases you can implement bots for the human contact center agent. Huge opportunities there. Second area, I will say relationship managers. In all segments, in wealth, in commercial, in corporate banking, the time it takes to prepare a meeting for a relationship manager is huge. And the less time it takes, the more clients he can meet, right? So AI for relationship managers is a huge value. It's direct revenue increase. It's not cost reduction, it's revenue increase. Marketing automation is another big one, where with artificial intelligence and also using a lot of that traditional analytics that we always forget about, but is very valuable, and it has a huge ROI. We can personalize and hyper-personalize recommendations. That's very, very important. And then finally, I will say operations. In operations, we have collection operations, credit operations, how we are able to run the bank at a much faster pace with a much lower rate of mistakes by using artificial intelligence in everything that is more routine, in everything that is more document-driven. And then, of course, in the business enablers, we have a lot of areas where we can work. Compliance is a huge one. We are often afraid of artificial intelligence as thinking of the risk that it could pose to compliance, but we have to see it also as a way of standardizing compliance, as a way of standardizing the checks that we are doing, right? Compliance, audit, huge opportunities in those areas.
Yeah, I think these are all very valid opportunities. But also when you talk to business leaders, you realize that many of them may not have an immediate ROI, right? And many times the ROI discussion is all about productivity and cost, but as you said, it could also be around growth, it could also be around the customer experience. So would you advise to not worry about ROI for the time being?
You have to calculate ROI, you have to worry about ROI, but you should take into account many other things. The uncertainty that you have in that calculation, you will make a calculation, you will say the ROI is this number, but what is the standard deviation of that number? It's very variable, right? Most AI projects fail. And as a business leader, you need to know that many of the things that you are doing are not going to work, right? I will look at the ROI, but I will also look at the fundamentals of that use case. What are the drivers of that impact? Is it a revenue-generating use case? Yeah. Is it working on a massive segment? Are there a lot of people involved with that activity? That is something that matters quite a lot, right? Understanding the drivers, not only the ROI. In general, I don't think we challenge enough ROI calculations, and I think we should be challenging them much more. Then when it comes to the kind of use cases where you will invest, there should be a budget for experimental use cases, just for experimentation, just for learning. Small budget just for learning. There should be a budget for that is transformational, and there should be a budget for that is incremental, right? And we have to be playing these three horizons at the same time without getting into that POC purgatory that I totally agree with. That is something certainly to avoid.
On the challenging, sorry, to jump in, on the challenging of the ROIs, it's something that I just realized to me, perhaps naively. Do we ask for an ROI for emails?
No.
For Word? Yet we ask an ROI for AI. Now, again, I'm being deliberately devil's advocate because obviously when you think it from an application point of view, you would like, yeah, absolutely. But the realization is that it's the two things at the same time. It's a horizontal whereby it is truly just that. If you think about what was the massive revolution of the world of GPT, is that it didn't ask about an application. It's just, I am just simply putting a capability in everyone's hand. That's it.
Yeah.
And look what has come from that. And we kind of have to be comfortably uncomfortable in saying, we just simply have to do things. Just like you send emails, that is the ROI. You have a capability. And concurrently, a vertical application which has a very kind of specific attack surface or specific benefit or specific engagement. The two have to coexist.
But as they say, in 2000 when .com was happening, people questioned the ROI of a website, mobile app, all of that, right? But nobody talks about it anymore, and I think that's how it's going to evolve. But I think the other thing in the whole AI journey is about, being responsible or AI safety, as you mentioned, David, and you have, when you were at Mass, I believe, created this whole framework of feet. Maybe you want to talk a bit about that?
Well, so two elements. I mean, if you think about it, what is the differentiate, especially in the world of finance? It's about oversight and insight. What do I mean by that? Insight, everything you mentioned in terms of that personal touch to a customer, whatever that may be within your specific hemisphere. The second one is oversight. It's actually governance. Whenever you talk to people in an organization, you're realizing, I'm not quite sure in terms of risk mitigation, identifying what are the potential controls associated, it's so cumbersome. The FEAT principles was effectively breaking it down to first principles and showing that it's not something necessarily new. For example, people talk about, responsible AI. It's called conduct and culture.
Yeah.
We talk about, we need to have a new practice in terms of how AI is. Well, you have governance controls. So it's effectively repackaging it in a manner of saying the vast majority of things have a structure, have a format. How do you leverage it? And true, there are certain things which AI does change. For example, the amplification of risk, potentially. Or in some cases, it's actually the minimization of it. So oversight, having the ability of using governance as innovation. Governance, not just governance for innovation, but governance is innovation.
But in some organizations, people would say that, that's all good, but that slows down the innovation.
And that's what I mean by
Yes.
it. You need to change. In every organization I had the pleasure of being in, it's changing the narrative of telling people, your job is not to say no. It's not.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? No. Your job is not to say no. Your job is to tell me how. And that is a mind shift change. That is perspective. And that's why I'm saying that when we think about truly capitalizing on the potential and the value of AI, oversight and insight. Insight, we got it. We're doing it. Each one in their own flavor and own approach. Now it's about that oversight and realizing that how do we shift that view by saying, no, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do this. Thank you very much for telling me what I'm allowed to do. I am telling you the objective. I want to provide this service too. How do I do it?
Yeah. Oh, makes a lot of sense. I think insight and oversight is a great paradigm. Pedro, now let's talk a bit about the other key element, right? Again, AI is not just about technology. Finally, it's about humans and people and talent, right? So if you could share your views about talent, both to build AI platforms, to use AI platforms, and what motivated you to write this amazing book, which is an Amazon bestseller?
Well, let me start with the book, and then we'll go to talent. I was invited to a podcast, and the podcast was about the history of AI. And I started taking some notes about how everything happened from the 1950s until 2017, and then ChatGPT and so on. And those notes started to become longer and longer and longer, and then one day they became 400 pages. and I got the book published, and I'm very lucky because it has been translated to many languages.
Very nice.
Yeah. So coming back to talent, I think for me, AI transformation is fundamentally human transformation. It's not a technology transformation. It's not implementing systems. It's changing the way people are working with that technology. And that involves retraining or reshaping the mindset of every employee in the bank, starting from the person that is in concierge all the way up to the chairman of the board, all the way up to the board members, right? And that is very, very important. We have to think of AI at this moment as a junior employee that is coming to the company to help us. Whether you are an accountant, you have a junior employee, this is the intern that you will have hired, and you have to know how to talk to him. When you are talking to a junior employee, you have to explain things very clearly, very much in detail. That's how you should write the prompt. You should write the prompt in exactly the same way you are talking to an intern that has just joined the company, or perhaps joined the company a few months ago, right? That mindset change is very important. When it comes to risk as well, I totally agree with what you have said. It's about saying how, it's not about saying no. And it's about saying how, and that requires training. It's about saying how in a way that is standardized. And this is very important to guarantee the speed. The only way, or the way that governance is not going to hamper innovation is through standardization. Every time you think about a problem, think about establishing the general framework that will address that problem in the future. It's not a case-by-case conversation, it's a standardization process.
Oh, wonderful. And maybe your views on it, I mean, there is a lot of demand for AI, and it's going to increase, but there is not so much talent available, right? I have two experts sitting next to me, and there are many other AI ninjas that are probably hired by firms in Silicon Valley for millions of dollars. But where do other regular enterprises create the AI talent?
So again, I've been having a whole sequence of epiphanies the last, several months. And I've kind of realized that I actually think we're underestimating the availability of talent. A very simple reason. I won't do it now, but let's say if I ask anyone in the audience, do you have GPT, Gemini, Grok, whatever version you prefer, installed and using it? They have it. We actually find that there's a personal us and there's the work us. On the personal us, we're all using it. It's there. It's a day-to-day. It's how do we engage. It's our expectation. It's consumption of content. It's there. Now, when you do a research, what is the first port of call? Is you go like, oh, let me throw a few questions. Let me try this out. Let me do some analysis. But yeah, when we suddenly go into work on Monday, nope. Everything shuts down. We can't do this. We can't do that. So my point is that you realize is that the talent is there. AI is in fact, it got to a point whereby, and there's something that I've had a view for a very long time, that AI is a core, it's critical for job security. And we intuitively have started adopting it. Maybe not as an engineer and developer, but that AI is an underlying spectrum, and therefore there's skills associated with the spectrum. So, where we need to change things is less be focused on whether it is able to hire, where to find them. It is there. It is there in the ether. What we need to make sure is that the organizations and environment is able to provide the place. Because imagine now you get a job offer at any organization, and they say to you, oh, fantastic job, excellent pay, but we're not going to give you Word.
Yeah.
You're going to have to handwrite everything. I'm pretty sure you're going to say, maybe not. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that point. And that's something which I'm challenging my organization, I'm challenging organizations. You're going to get to a point when you try and hire people and you don't offer them what is almost a default prerequisite, they're going to say, thank you, no.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Again, at Infosys, we have more than 300,000 employees. And we are democratizing AI so that everyone has access to the tools. We're out of time, but fascinating conversations from the two most distinguished experts on AI at SFF. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.